if you have an interest, if you're doing this already and you'd like someone to come onto your farm, do some of these measurements. We're going to do it through a series of tramline trials. But, if anybody is doing it already or is interested in it or has a source of organic manure or a contractor doing this, we'd be delighted to hear from you, really.
The use of organic manures on tillage farms is commonplace, but not on all farms. Where organic manures are used, are you getting the best from this organic manure? How aware are you of the nutrient losses over winter? And is it possible to apply more organic manures in the spring, closer to crop nutrient demand? You're listening to the latest episode of the Tillage Edge with me, Michael Hennessy. We'd really appreciate it if you could listen, follow, and give us a review on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. I'm delighted to be joined today by Ciaran Collins, a Teagasc Tillage Specialist, to talk about organic manures and a new project looking at organic manure application techniques called Soil Cycle. Ciaran, before we start talking about the new project, just as regards organic manures, some tillage farmers see them as an important part of their system, but others don't really hold that view. What benefit do you see applying organic manures onto tillage farms?
This time every year we talk about the harvest gone by, and a trend that we frequently talk about is where the better yields come from, and quite often that's on fields that get regular dressings of organic manure. Yep. So there is that relationship between organic manure application and yield, and I think that's well proven year in, year out. But look, at a basic level, firstly, it's just nutrient supply. I mean, you're providing your lands with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium mainly, But then I suppose the bit that maybe adds to it is that kind of soil health improvement bit, where organic manures, the way they contribute to soil organic matter, and that feeds soil biology and overall improves soil health. So I think that's a big part of it, and I suppose then there's the whole cost effectiveness. Obviously, if you can replace, a proportion of your chemical fertilizer with organic manures. Now, organic manures come with a cost too, because you have to put them out, but it can be cost effective as well. So I suppose really they're the main benefits, I suppose, really, to a tillage farmer.
Plenty of positives, at least, anyways. Although I did see last week it was published there that a nitrates expert group are recommending the cessation or stopping of the use of high nitrogen organic materials in the autumn on tillage farms. What do you think will happen, for those tillage farms who are using that type of material? Or I suppose on the other side of it, where's that material going to go now?
This is a challenge, I suppose. Look, firstly, it's also a challenge, obviously, for tillage, but like for pig farmers, whether it's mushroom growers or poultry farmers, that's something that they have to consider as well. And like a lot of tillage farmers don't have storage on their farms, so that's not going to work, I suppose. But I suppose on the other side of it, environmentally, putting out nitrogen, even if it's ahead of a winter cereal, for argument's sake, the supply of nitrogen would exceed the demand of that cereal over the winter period. So where's that nitrogen going to go? But then I think there is a place in front of crops like oilseed rape, brassica being very good at kind of utilizing that organic manure. So certainly there is a place under oilseed rape, and we have shown that you can build good canopies over the winter and make good use of that organic manure. So I think that would be the place to go with organic manure in the autumn, really.
And I suppose that then throws, or I suppose pushes a lot of that organic manures back into the spring to be potentially applied to tillage crops. And to a degree, the new project we're going to talk about now is trying to look at some of that in various different scenarios. You might maybe just outline a little bit about what the project is setting out to do.
Yeah, so I suppose if you take a very round figure, 300,000 hectares of cereals, the actual figure is a bit less, but like half of that could be in winter cereals, So like we just spoke about there, it can be very difficult to get organic manure onto winter cereals, whereas for spring cereals, you can put it out, you can work it into the soil, and we know that works, So what the project is really about, I suppose the big part of it is to try and, I suppose, promote and look at the adoption of that in-crop application. So you're actually putting out the organic manure in the spring when the crop needs it. And I suppose there are growers doing that, and we have sat down and we have looked at what they're doing, and I suppose there is something in it, but it's not without challenges. But I suppose that really is the nub of what the project does, is looking at this adoption and looking at using organic manures in crop in the spring. So this could be February, March, April.
So sorry, Ciaran, when you say in crop, do you mean before the crop is sown or onto a winter crop that would have been sown 3 or 4 months previously?
Yeah, for the winter crops in the spring, yeah. So into a growing crop, So we'd be using, obviously dribble bars, and I suppose the overall objective, obviously, again, is like we said at the start, to reduce the dependency on chemical fertilizer, hopefully save costs for the farmer. But I suppose within the project then as well, I suppose that's the overriding thing we're going to be looking at, but also we're going to look at, I suppose, precision technologies. Obviously we'd utilize the likes of GPS for accuracy, flow meters. We hopefully at some stage we look at the likes of NIR, near infrared technology, for that really getting down to the precision application. So looking at what we're putting on and then seeing what, I suppose, fertilizer replacement value we can get. And I suppose the other one, then the obvious one to a lot of growers, is going to be, okay, we don't get good weather often in the spring. Are we going to do damage to the crop when we're driving through it? So we are going to look at or to evaluate, I suppose, compaction and wheeling effects, and see at what point do we have to stop, and the other part of it, how early can we go, how late can we go. So it's sort of putting all of that piece together about the in-crop, and ultimately I suppose that we would come up with a set of best practice guidelines. I think really that's what we would hope the output would be at the end, based on the project.
So to give people a bit of a visualization on this, Ciaran, you're mostly going to look at, is it liquid slurries through an umbilical cord system, or are you looking at solids as well?
Mainly liquid. I think mainly liquid. The farmers that are doing it so far, I would say the majority would be using a dribble dribble bar system, with pig slurry is probably the most common. But look, in the project, we will look at everything that's available to a farmer. So that could be livestock slurry, obviously pig slurry, digestate might be an option, but whatever's available to the farmer, really. But I would imagine a lot of it will be on pig slurry. I think that's really the one that's probably most freely available.
So is the project based in Oak Park, or is it across the country, Ciaran?
No, the beauty of it is that it's going to be on tillage farms. It's not it's not in any research facility, so hopefully it'll be very representative of the tillage area. So our plan, I suppose, is to have 3 main hubs to cover the main tillage area. So we'll have something in the south, the southeast, and the northeast. That will be our plan. So we're covering sort of a range of soil types. And then in each area, then you'd hope to have the plan is to have a number of farmers. And, some of those farmers might be serviced with their own contractor or doing it themselves, or maybe one contractor might be covering 2 or 3 farmers in an area. So it's a bit of a jigsaw that we'll hopefully put together.
Okay. So in terms of the farmers, contractors, and the hubs that you talked about, are all these in place, or are you still trying to figure out and put those pieces together?
Still putting it together. The Farmers Journal did a little piece on it there a few weeks ago, and we got a great response. But we're still, I suppose, looking for both farmers and contractors, to be honest. Now we've got a great response so far, but like I said, it's like a bit of a jigsaw. If we can get a few farmers together and service them with one contractor or something, it would make the thing a bit more efficient. So, if anybody is interested, certainly let us know, be it a farmer or a contractor.
In any particular area, Ciaran?
Yeah, in those key areas, really, I wouldn't rule out anyone, to be honest. If you have an interest, if you're doing this already and you'd like someone to come onto your farm, do some of these measurements. We're going to do it through a series of tramline trials. But if anybody is doing it already or is interested in it or has a source of organic manure or a contractor doing this, we'd be delighted to hear from you, really.
So for maybe farmers or contractors listening to this, they might be kind of thinking, yeah, that sounds really interesting, but I'd be a bit nervous about these lads are going to ask me to do this, that, and the other. What are you expecting from the farmers or contractors?
Well, I suppose the obvious one is that they're going to practice the in-crop application, of organic manure, whether that's pig, cattle, or that. And we're going to do it then by a series of tramline trials. So, for argument's sake, if there was 9 tramlines in a field, you might have the first 3 tramlines doing what you always did with chemical fertilizer, and then maybe one, replacing a proportion of the chemical fertilizer, say with organic manure, and maybe a third treatment, maybe looking at something in between, And then we hope to harvest these tramlines then. So one of the requirements would be that either the farmer or the contractor or the farmer would have access to a combine with yield monitoring capabilities where we could download and we can use that information then to evaluate and get results, So I suppose other than that, really, from the farmer's perspective, is be just to allow the people involved in the project to take a few measurements. I mentioned the compaction, where the tractor traveled in the spring to look at compaction and different measurements like that, but it wouldn't be too invasive anyway.
So physically, from what I can gather from you there, from a farmer's point of view, or even a contractor, the bulk of the work will be put on X amount of organic manures in this portion of the field, and the farmer might have to adjust the fertilizer in that proportion of the field. And the final bit of that then is, and then everything else is done the same with the crop, and then the final bit is just harvested with a combine with a yield monitor and a GPS system on it. That's about, so it's not a huge ask necessarily, as long as people are willing to do it accurately.
No, it's not. No, in fairness,
Okay.
That would be what it'd be. The farmer or the contractor would have to do. But I'd hope that they'd be, any farmer or contractor that gets involved in it, that I hope they would get a lot out of it. I suppose you're getting information from your own crops, your own fields. I suppose you're getting, in terms of cost effectiveness, you're getting someone that's going to sit down, do the numbers and what it costs to get it there, because the logistics of this, it's not free. You have to spread it and you have to transport it. So we'll be looking at all of those and how far can this slurry travel, or what's feasible for my farm, and then we'll do soil health measurements. 3 years of a project now wouldn't be much in measuring soil health, but we will take all those measurements as well and look at hopefully yield improvements and how the thing is progressing for each farmer.
Okay, so for farmers or contractors who are interested, how do they get in contact with you?
My email address is ciaran.collins@teagasc.ie. If you or contact any local Teagasc office, and they will be able to put you in contact with myself or yourself.
Yeah, we'll put that up on the show notes there. So just on the on the bottom of the podcast, you'll actually see Ciaran's email address there. Ciaran, the project is a big project. There's a lot of activity going on in it. You are hiring some staff into that project as well. You're actively looking at the moment.
We are actually. The advisor post is already gone up. So if anybody is interested in that role, that there's a post there until the end of until December 2029. So the advisor role will be working very, very closely with the farmers in setting up the trials, helping the farmers with their nutrient management planning, taking measurements and that. But the job spec is on the Teagasc website there at the moment. If anybody with, the qualifications is interested, I think it's a really, really good role. And I think it's a great opportunity for someone to come in and get their teeth into this, because I think it is something that's going to be very, very important down the road, And also we'll be looking for a technician as well, who will work with both the farmers and very closely with the advisor and the program as well. So that job post will be coming up very soon as well.
Okay, so maybe just finally on that, and circling back and to organic manures, for farmers who won't be involved in this but might know what's going on in their areas, when will they see some results or demonstrations about the project?
Yeah, a big part of what we plan in the program is to have a lot of hopefully knowledge transfer events. So we would love to, like the ideal scenarios, if you could get an event on a farm when they're actually spreading, so people can get a feel of how it looks and maybe see the crop after the organic manure application, and obviously some of the results that will follow. So there will be a lot of, the plan is to have a lot of knowledge transfer on farm events. And I suppose at the end of the program, we obviously will try and put a conference on the whole thing together as well. But there certainly will be a lot of on-farm practical events.
Ciaran, that's brilliant. And listen, thanks very much for coming on and talking about the project and the best of luck with it. I think it's certainly something that the industry craves in terms of trying to figure out all the practicalities about putting on the in-crop application. But I think, as you rightly say, the whole area as regards the logistics and the costs involved in organic manures, people often shy away from it because it looks too difficult and a bit too expensive, but maybe it's not. So Ciaran, hopefully it goes really well for you.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
So that's it for today, and my thanks to Ciaran for joining me on the podcast. A quick reminder that the Tillage Crops Forum takes place in 2 weeks on Wednesday, September the 10th in the Killishy Hotel, Naas, County Kildare. We have a great lineup for you, including the latest on varieties, including an up-to-date on yellow rust, and we will take a deep dive into rye as a crop which holds plenty of promise for both tillage and livestock farmers. So finally, if you enjoyed the podcast, then recommend it to your friends or colleagues, and as always, review and follow on Apple or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for more information, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Michael Hennessy, thanks for listening. I'll be back next week with more tillage news and advice.